Advent is called a time of joyful expectation, of joyful waiting. There are three kinds of waiting in the time of Advent. One, the most obvious, waiting for Christmas. Second, less obvious, waiting for the second coming of the Lord. And that usually happens when we die and we meet the Lord. And third, most challenging probably, is waiting to recognize Christ who is present in our midst, here and now. That challenges me, and I believe most of us, to see the Christ in my life on a daily basis. Not waiting for sweet, cute statue of baby Jesus in the manger. Not waiting for the second coming and the rapture and all those special effects. But waiting for me to recognize the Christ around me. There is a story about a famous monastery back in Europe that used to bring crowds of people for daily Mass. Throngs of people would go there almost on a daily basis to listen to their sermons given by the monks. There would be lines waiting for confessionals. People would hold onto every word coming from the mouths of those wise monks. But with time, that monastery began to decay. For no apparent reason, vocations ceased. There were no younger monks joining them anymore. People would stop coming frequently. From big crowds, they got smaller and smaller. The masses ended up being very poorly attended. Music got really bad. Sermons were not exciting anymore. That monastery has lost its vigor, its enthusiasm. It did not draw people any longer. So the wise old abbot, having been left with 7 monks only, decided to seek advice of an hermit, a man who lived in the desert by himself. That man was known for his wisdom. What the hermit told him took him by surprise. He said, "What you need to do is go back to your brothers and tell them what I found out today in prayer. I believe that the Christ is living in your monastery. I believe that Christ himself has taken on a form of a simple monk and is quietly living in your very monastery." The Father Abbot rushed home, called for a meeting of all 8 surviving monks, and announced the joyful news to them. "Listen, guys. Listen to what I have found out. The Christ is one of us. One of you has not told me that you are the Christ. One of you is pretending to be a simple monk." And a whole discussion erupted. Who could it be? Brother John, who works in the kitchen and prays all day long, but is holier than thou and drives everybody crazy? Could it be Father Tom, who is a great preacher, but also a great drunkard? Could it be someone else that we don't pay attention to? Who is the Christ? Who is pretending to be a simple monk, living in our midst? They could not find an easy answer. They suspected that any one of them but me could be the Christ. And so they began to be more cautious and careful with how they relate to each other. Perhaps that monk who is annoying me so much is really the Christ. Perhaps that boring sermon was given by Christ himself. I better not criticize it too much. Perhaps that quiet, simple monk really is the Christ. So because of that change in their behavior, that simple old monastery became vibrant once again. Something has switched and people have realized that something new is going on. They would start coming back for confessions, for spiritual directions, for their daily masses. With weeks and months passing by, the life was going with full speed with what used to be almost dead monastery. Just because they suspected that one of them could be the Christ. I believe that we need to hear what Father Abbot heard as well. One of you is the Christ. I don't know which one, but please step forward so I can be not polite to everyone, but to just one of you. That would make my life so much easier, right? If I didn't have to be Christian towards everybody, if I knew who is the Christ and could focus on that one person, that would have made my life so much easier. But I do not know who he or she is. You see, that's precisely what John the Baptist told the priests and Levites in today's gospel. He said, "There is one among you whom you do not know. One among you whom you do not know." The problem is that we do not know neither. The problem is that we do not have a proof of identity, that we can only guess who is the Christ. We are like those priests and Levites who have certain expectations of the Christ. You see, for them, the promised Messiah, and by the way, Messiah and Christ are the same words. Messiah is in Hebrew, anointed one, and Christ is in Greek, also anointed one. So for Jews, Messiah was to be a liberator, someone who would set them free from Roman rule and occupation. He would set things straight. He would come with powerful army to bring the kingdom of Israel once again. And so Jesus the carpenter did not fill that job description. He was not powerful, he had no army, he was not whom they expected as Messiah. Perhaps our expectations of who the Christ is to be are also slightly off the chart. Perhaps we think of the second coming as something spectacular, as something that will fill our description, our expectations. Perhaps we wait for someone unique and special while that Messiah is Brother James cooking our food. Perhaps that Messiah is your wife, your in-laws who annoy you beyond imagination. Perhaps that Messiah is living next door to you. But of course, he or she does not fit that job description that we have in our minds. A few months ago, when I was talking to the Episcopal Bishop of St. Louis, I brought forth a question of our Marian devotion. You know, we being Polish and Catholic, we have a special connection to Mary, the Mother of Jesus. And some of our parishioners asked me to talk to the bishop whether or not our Marian devotion would be an impediment to dialogue with the Episcopal Church. To which he answered, "Oh, I'm fine with your Black Madonna, with your Lady of Częstochowa, as long as you will be fine with Lady of Walsingham." I mean, who? I have heard of Fatima, of Lourdes, but Walsingham? Who the heck is Lady of Walsingham? So I found out that there used to be a big shrine in England, in Walsingham, where before Elizabeth I, crowds of people would go on a daily basis and pray in front of the statue of Our Lady of Walsingham. In the early 20th century, both Roman Catholics and Anglicans re-established that shrine. And now, once again, Our Lady of Walsingham is a popular place of prayer and Marian devotion, both for Anglicans and Roman Catholics. So he told me, if you put a statue or picture of Our Lady of Walsingham, you can keep all the other Marian statues and pictures in your church as well. Then I thought to myself, how interesting that I have never heard of that image of Mary. How isolated life I have lived that I only know those 2 or 3 Our Ladies of Częstochowa, Fatima, and Lourdes. Just because I hang out with people from Europe, I have never been exposed to Our Lady of Walsingham. Then I found out there are beautiful statues and shrines in Africa. There are beautiful shrines and pictures and statues in Japan, in Philippines, in Vietnam, in India. They look nothing like our Marys that we have in our church. I have realized there is an entire world of Marys I have not been exposed to, that in my Catholic and religious bringing, I have been isolated to the people of my language, my culture, my race, and so on. And so I went on a discovery process of finding out all different kinds of Marys, all different kinds of Our Ladies of something else. Perhaps in our lives we are isolated from other people and from messiahs in the same way. Think about it for a moment. We hang out with people who look like us, who talk like us, who behave like us, who share our political convictions, who like the same food, who like the same music. If you are a liberal, you will hang out with the liberals, right? If you are conservative, you will hang out with the conservatives. How many of us hang out with people who speak no English? Well, unless it's Polish. How many of us hang out with the Mexicans or other immigrants from Central and South America? How many of us have friends from Bosnia and Herzegovina who live in South St. Louis? How many of us talk and socialize with people who are from outside our tribe? We have become so tribal that we isolate and limit ourselves in our experience of who Jesus the Christ might be. Perhaps the Messiah who is coming is not white. Perhaps the Messiah who is living in your life doesn't speak English. Perhaps the Messiah who is present in your life today has a very drastically different political convictions from yours. Perhaps that Messiah is someone you don't expect him or her to be. So, my challenge and homework for you is simple. Are you ready for homework? You will leave the church today with a homework. I want to invite you to think of one or two persons from outside your tribe, someone that you don't hang out with, someone who doesn't vote the same way, who doesn't look the same way, who doesn't talk the same way as you do, someone that you have never paid a lot of attention to. Perhaps that Mexican guy from Schnucks who cuts your meat when you go for shopping. Perhaps your mailman or mail lady. Perhaps your neighbor who moved into your neighborhood from a different country. Think of someone who is not like you, whom you have never sent a Christmas card to before. And this year, give them a Christmas card. Reach out to someone that you have never reached out to. Think and find of someone that would be shocked when you give her or him a Christmas card. Find someone from outside your isolated world to surprise her, to surprise him with beautiful Christmas greetings. Perhaps you will give them a stroke, hopefully not. But I hope that you will surprise him or her with your kindness, that you will surprise him or her with you reaching outside your tribal boundaries. Perhaps this will be the beginning of a healing of our city, because we are so tribal, because we are so isolated. We hang out with the people like ourselves. So this 10 days before Christmas, find someone who is not a member of your tribe. Reach out to her, reach out to him. If you can, mail a card. If you can not mail, hand him or her a card yourself. Because we do not who the Christ is. We do not know who the Christ is. The Christ can very well be someone who doesn't look, talk, or votes like you do. And John the Baptist says, "The one whom you do not know is mightier than I, and I am not worthy to untie his sandals." Someone whom we do not know is at least as worthy as we are, perhaps even more so, of God's love, grace, and peace. Amen.